In the first part of this Purposeful Conversations resource, we're looking at stage 1 of the C.L.E.A.R model, contract. This stage is about working out what we are hoping to achieve from the session before we start doing it. This could be a very short stage or take much longer, and may be dependent on how far along a process you already are, or what the relationship is between you and the person that you're supporting. It's important to note that this stage should not just be addressed at the beginning, but you may need to recontract or remind yourselves of the contract at various points throughout the coaching conversation. The contract should cover the logistical aspects, like how much time you have, and the scope and the desired outcomes of the conversation, as well as the role and expectation of the two parties. All this is in order to minimize confusion and misunderstanding and make the best use of the time that you have. One method of completing the contract stage uses another helpful acronym, C.L.E.A.R, which stands for Subject, Time, Outcome, Know, Role and Start. Interestingly, a stoker is the name of the person who sits at the back of a tandem bicycle, and there are some helpful comparisons with their role in moving the bike forward and your role as a coach in moving a conversation forward. A stoker provides the drive at the back to get the tandem started. Along with the driver at the front, the stoker provides power and often provides reserve power when going over challenging terrain. The stoker shouldn't try to navigate or steer the bike. They should lean into corners, but not try to steer, as this can destabilize the tandem, which could even lead to a crash. The driver is the person in charge at the front who typically does the navigating. But the stoker also has brakes they can use if they think the tandem is going too fast at any stage. The stoker's role can also include encouragement and even the occasional pat on the driver's back. Using this comparison, we can see that the role of the coach, the conversation leader, should be to get the conversation started, be supportive, unbiased and objective, challenging and encouraging, helping the conversation along. But all of the navigation and steering should be done by the person you're supporting. Thinking back to stokers as an acronym, the S stands for subject. First of all, you establish what the person wants to talk about and what parts of the subject they may want to explore with you. T is for time. It's important that this step comes after the subject because, given the amount of time you have, you may need to narrow down a particular aspect of the subject you try to cover in this conversation. For example, if the subject is growing the church and you have 45 minutes, then you may want to focus on one particular area of church growth to start with, or at least to manage expectations. O is for outcome. In step 3, you ask the question, what's a good outcome from today's conversation for you, or for your team, for your church, or for the community, even for the world? You should go as far as appropriate, but it's always good to consider the ultimate effect on the community rather than just on the church or its members. K is for know. In step 4 of the contract stage, you ask the question, how will you know when you've got there? This may have been covered in the outcome step, so don't cover it again if it's not necessary, but it may be something like, by the end, I'll have an action plan, 2 or 3 next steps. And this question should focus on today rather than the process as a whole. You don't need to understand everything about their answer as long as they understand. "I'll just know" is a common answer, but you need something specific so that you can check back later on. R is for role. The next step is to establish each of your different roles, asking the question, how shall we do this? Most people tend to defer to perceived power, and if they think you have more power or knowledge than them, they can become passive, a follower. Asking how shall we do this often draws a blank. So if the person doesn't know, move on, but the question is still valid, as it says, we're sharing this process. It may be good at this stage to ask how challenging they would like you to be, or perhaps how much they would like you to reflect back what you hear and sense, or ask how they would like to structure the conversation. S is start. In this step, simply ask, where shall we start? This may be obvious, but it's not usually important for you to know the whole backstory of an issue, just what's needed for today's conversation. This whole contracting process at the start of your coaching session can sound a bit lengthy or formal, but if you both understand from the outset clearly what you're doing and what you hope to achieve from your time together, then it can make the conversation more purposeful and hopefully bring an outcome which will help people and situations move forward. In the next video, we'll look at stage 2 of the C.L.E.A.R model, listen.